mean the next step is to just roll over and let GW
Right.
Pharmaceuticals
Yeah,
take it over.
absolutely.
Like,
And this kind of ties into Project Mongoose, which is something that you I know have been talking a lot about, and this you mentioned it a couple times, this grass attracts snakes kind of idea. You want to expand on that some?
yeah.
What Project Mongoose is, and what that grass attracts snakes hashtag that you've been using is?
Yeah, so it actually started as a joke amongst so as a little bit of background, I don't have any friends outside of the cannabis industry anymore. Like everybody either A wanted something and got thrown to the wayside, or B didn't agree with my lifestyle anymore. Like a lot of the guys I was in the military with are like, ew, you're into weed, like that's bad or whatever. So basically my entire life is now put into the cannabis world. So I don't really get to like step outside of
Hmm.
it ever, if that makes sense. So it kind of started amongst myself and my now partner Alex and some of our peers as just an easy way to kind of throw it out there. Grass attracts snakes,
Hmm.
be a mongoose. Easy. Snakes are bad, mongoose eat snakes and or are immune to their venom or both. So it kind of became this cute thing that we were throwing around on mostly LinkedIn, but social media in general, and it started to catch on. And then we started thinking about it. How many of these water cooler talks have we had? How many stories do we know? Because it doesn't take very long to be in the cannabis industry till you
Hmm.
hear your first one. And then once you hear your first one, it's like you'll hear a second one and you'll go, well, did you hear what happened to, this person? And they're like, yeah, I did. That's not that uncommon. That happened to me and my, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't take very much searching to find people who are quite unhappy or have had some pretty terrible experiences. We decided that the easiest way to kind of share that and fill a space was to take things a step farther than what the industry had. So prior to us, there were things like the blacklist or other call out groups who would basically collect the bad stories and say,
Hmm.
you guys are doing bad. You know what I mean? Like, here's a picture of mold in your product. Here's a picture of your doctored COA. Here's the dirt, right? That's easy. Anybody can punch up. That's
Hmm.
public relations 101. We wanted to take it the next step and we wanted to give people an allegory or a lessons learned or an after action report, or the way we explain it easy in the way we consult with our end to end consulting kind of applies to this too. We wanted to turn around at the end of the path with a flashlight and show the people that are coming up in the next generation, or even the current generation, where the pitfalls are, that they're not alone, that they can come over the pitfalls. There are easy ways to get around it. And like the idea kind of stemmed from, I guess, a book called Venture Deals, which was basically two venture capitalists, a lawyer, and an entrepreneur decided that venture capitalism was shady and it had a lot of complex language and complex things that weren't that
Hmm.
complicated if you knew what you were looking at. So they wrote a book and they were like, here you go, guys. If you can't read between the lines, here's all the stuff in between the lines. Put this one with your other book you already know and you're good, right? We wanted to do that for cannabis because I'll be frank, there is a lot of malfeasance, there's a lot of toxic culture, there's a lot of shady dealings in our industry, and I would say more so than most others. Maybe the real estate boom right before the tech bubble, or right before the real estate bubble, or maybe the early days of the tech boom had similar. And it's all a product of being a boom industry, and B, being 3 steps ahead of the regulations that are supposed to be there for an industry, because that's how it always works. So we end up in this kind of Wild West idea. So we started asking for stories. And we decided to take those stories and put them into a book. So that's what we're doing. We're collecting stories. Not all of them are going to make the book. Uh, we're going to start doing a blog post. And then in the next couple of weeks, myself and our friend Kristen Yoder at the Canna BS Detector are going to be kind of joining forces, since she's been preaching the same message for longer than we have. And we're going to be doing like a weekly podcast where we're going to take the
Hmm.
stories that we can. Because I'll be frank, a lot of the people who are sending in stories are vice presidents, directors, high level people at companies that still work for the companies
Hmm.
they're effectively whistleblowing on. So we're going to have to scrub the stories and kind of make them a little more generalized, but to get the point across. And then our goal is to take the news and overlay it. So I think like little things that people don't look at. Like if you step back and look at three unrelated stories, they actually tell a story together. And if you don't put them together and give it some context, like a story we've collected, it doesn't really land. Something like, oh, there's a billion leftover milligrams of THC in Canadian cannabis companies. Canadian cannabis CEOs took massive pay increases while they cut staff. La 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 la. Canadian cannabis company XYZ, ABC and DEF have all announced mergers and acquisitions. Well, if you put those three together, it looks like a bunch of failing ships that are trying to route, basically route investors and look like they're doing good stuff when they're not. But read separately, it seems like unrelated things. So we're going to start putting out content in that manner that kind of doesn't breach and save the ones that are a little bit more long form for the book. And then kind of the rest of that is our due diligence and vetting stuff. So we do deep dives for investors and entrepreneurs because honestly, something that everybody has told us, as far as our friends, other business to business providers, is that I just did a survey on this actually. Something like 87% of respondents said that they had had something come up in their time in cannabis where if they had known about it beforehand, they could have saved themselves time, money, resources, things like that. So that's kind of the overarching thing. It's finding the bad stories, giving them some context, and taking someone that's more of an expert than myself in that particular niche and turning it into a way to avoid that rather
Oh,
than
that's
letting
fascinating.
people
So you're
fall into the
cataloging all
pits.
these problems at any point in the industry through the supply chain. And when new people come to you, you can help them avoid those same pitfalls. That's cool. And it's over time.
Bingo.
So it's kind of like when things start showing up, so the problems that we have today, hopefully we will be having different problems and the better kinds of problems 5 years from now.